Welcome back, viewers. Today, we'll be delving into one of the most impactful events in modern history, the 9/11 attacks. This tragic day marked a turning point in the world, reshaping international politics and security. On the crisp morning of September 11, 2001, the world watched in shock as the unimaginable unfolded. The 9/11 attacks remain a haunting chapter in our history, forever etched into our collective memory. September 11, 2001. A horrifying day that shook America to the core. A day that perhaps changed the world forever. It was the morning of September 11, American Airlines Flight 11 takes off from Boston's International Airport. The destination of this flight was Los Angeles. Around 92 people were aboard this airplane, of whom 11 were crew members and 81 were passengers. About 15 minutes after the flight took off, it comes to be known that of the 81 passengers, 5 were hijackers. These hijackers hijacked the plane by overpowering the passengers, forcing their way into the cockpit. One of them was Mohammed Atta. He was trained as a pilot. By nationality, he was an Egyptian and was 33 years old. He takes away the control of the plane from the pilot and co-pilot, and flies the plane straight towards the World Trade Center. The hijackers crashed the plane into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. The then President of the USA, George Bush, was on a tour of a school in Florida. Only 17 minutes later it comes to be known the United Airlines Flight 175 had also been hijacked. Once again, the hijackers overpowered the pilots and take away the control of the plane. Because only 17 minutes after the first crash, these hijackers once again turned towards the World Trade Center and crashed the plane into the South Tower. This time, his chief of staff Andrew Gadd went in the classroom and whispered into his ears, "America is under attack." But George Bush stays in the classroom. He took photos with the children and the teachers. These 7 minutes were very critical because in these 7 minutes, the news spread worldwide that 2 planes crashed into the World Trade Center. Later, many people criticized George Bush for this, asking why he didn't take immediate action. When it was known that 2 planes were hijacked, America was attacked, there were crashes, he remained in the classroom in those minutes. A few minutes after the second plane crash, the news of 2 more planes being hijacked comes in. One was the American Airlines Flight 77. It had taken off from Washington's International Airport. This flight was headed to Los Angeles and it was also carrying 5 hijackers. The second flight was United Airlines Flight 93, the flight going from New Jersey to California. Apparently, it had 4 hijackers. Both flights were rerouted to Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is the capital of the United States of America. On the outskirts of Washington, D.C. is the headquarters of the U.S. Department of Defense. It is called the Pentagon. The Pentagon is an iconic building too. Hijackers turned Flight 77 and crashed into the Pentagon building. It would appear that there has been another major explosion. At this point in time, after the third crash, the entire airspace of the United States was shut down. All the airplanes in the air were ordered to land. The third crash into the Pentagon building took place at 9:37 a.m. Because of this, a significant portion of the Pentagon gets destroyed. At 9:59 a.m., due to the plane crash into the South Tower, the whole building had caught on fire. Because of the fire and the crash, the structure of the building had weakened. And at this time, the entire building collapsed. The South Tower fell. During this time, everyone was scared of the 4th hijacked plane. People were scared about where the hijackers would crash the plane. It was suspected that the plane would be crashed into the White House, or the US Capitol. The White House is a very important place for the United States because this is the residence of the US President. And the United States Capitol building is the legislative seat of the US federal government. So it was suspected that the target of the 4th plane would either be the White House or the Capitol Hill building. On the other hand, the people on this airplane, some of them had turned on their phones when the plane was hijacked. They started getting phone calls from their family members. They told them about what was happening in America then. Soon the passengers in this plane had realized what was happening. Their plane was also hijacked. And like the other hijacked planes were crashed, soon their plane could also be crashed. They didn't have many options. They could either sit back and watch the hijackers crash that plane too, or they could be brave and fight the hijackers. And then, these people showed the courage to fight the hijackers, and eventually, the plane crash landed in an empty field. One thing is certain: because of the bravery of the passengers, the lives of many people were saved. At 10:28 a.m., the North Tower of the World Trade Center collapsed as well. By the time this horrific morning turned into noon for America, it is revealed that a total of more than 3,000 people had died across the incidents, and more than 6,000 people were injured. Several were killed in the Pentagon, several in the World Trade Center, and the terrorist group, Al-Qaeda, were behind this attack. But a few days after this 9/11 attack, Osama bin Laden releases a statement saying that he is not responsible for it. But in 2004, US elections, about 3 years after this incident, a public tape recording is published by Osama bin Laden, where he acknowledges the attack and takes responsibility for it. Osama justifies it by saying that there were several motivations of Al-Qaeda behind carrying out these attacks. Osama lists down several reasons, saying that that was why they attacked America. The 9/11 Commission report names a Pakistani terrorist Khalid Sheikh Mohammed to be the principal architect of these attacks. On the other hand, Osama bin Laden is finally killed on May 2011. But perhaps here it is very important to know that how did these attacks affect the lives of a common man? Only 6 weeks after the 9/11 attacks, a Patriot Act was passed in a rush by the US Congress. Several politicians who were present in the USA Parliament hadn't even read this bill. Neither was there a proper discussion, nor were there any amendments. The Patriot Act was simply passed. What was so special in this act? This act gave the US government boundless power. It gave the US government the authority to spy on its citizens. It could secretly access any books, records, papers, and documents. Additionally, they reduced the power of the judiciary. People pointed out how the government basically used the Patriot Act and used the terrorist threat as an excuse to silence its dissenters. After 9/11 attacks, another shocking change was in the airport security norms. You'd be surprised to know that before 2001, in most of the airports in the world, there wasn't much security checking. Sometimes they'd merely check the ID and the metal detectors that you see while entering shopping malls. The security check was similar to that before boarding an airplane. You didn't even need to arrive long before boarding the flight. Arriving 15 to 30 minutes before was sufficient. But after 9/11, everything changed. Today, full body scans, mandatory personal ID checks, passport checks are done. Boarding passes are given. You are told to empty your pockets. When bags are checked, you need to place laptops and other devices outside. And there are various minute restrictions that weren't there before. Thank you for watching and taking this journey with us. If you found this video informative, leave a comment below, like, subscribe, and share it with others. Together, we can ensure that the memories of 9/11 remain alive in our hearts and history books.